am Alina Iancu. I'm an archaeologist from Romania, specialized in the field of textile archaeology. I'm holding a position at the National Institute of Heritage of Romania since 6 years ago, and I'm working there in the field of cultural heritage, promoting generally for the general public and for the scientists in general archaeological sites and other cultural resources. And I also have a formation as a textile archaeologist. Recently, in 2022, I defended my PhD thesis at the University of Bucharest on the topic of textile production in the Peloponnese, Greece. More specifically, I investigated clay spurs as a key factor of textile production in the region. I'm also interested in textile production in the Black Sea area, especially that here we have on the western shore of the Black Sea Greek colonies, and I'm working to publish, for example, textile tools from the Greek colonies in this region. So these are my main interests, and generally this is what I'm doing.
So, well, my name is Leyre Morgado-Roncal. I'm a Spanish archaeologist, and I'm currently doing my PhD. I have a 4-year contract to do so at the University of Granada, and in my PhD, I'm working in textile production, but during Roman times, especially in Augusta Emerita, which was the capital city of the Roma Lusitania. And in my PhD, the focus is like the chaîne opératoire, all the archaeological vestiges that were part of the production of textiles during antiquity. And mainly I'm focusing like in Roman times, but after my PhD, I don't know. So I'm currently in my 2nd year of my PhD, so it's still 2 years to go. And I'm trying to get more formation on textiles. Like I've been trying to do like experimental courses, training schools to like enrich my knowledge on textile production.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a historian. I'm studying at the University of Iceland, working on my doctorate in history. My project is on vavmal, or it's a type of woolen cloth, and I'm looking at its role in the medieval period in Iceland as both cloth and a commodity currency. And I'm using documentary sources like literature, law codes, and annals. I'm not looking at the physical cloth, but just more document sources of the cloth.
Hey, my name is Ronja Lau. I am from Germany. I studied prehistoric archaeology in Berlin, and I am now a PhD student for textile archaeology at the Ruhr University in Bochum and at the National History Museum in Vienna, because I have my PhD project is about the textiles from the salt mine Dürnberg in Austria, which is an Iron Age salt mine excavated for the past 20 years. And from those salt mines, a quite variety of different Iron Age textiles come from. So I document them and make analysis on all those textiles, as they're very well preserved in those salt mines. I also have a funded PhD project for the next 3 years. I just started recently because the funding took some time. So I'm very glad I can work now on my project.
Yeah, so regarding the way in which we started to do textiles, I can share my experience. My contact with in Romania, textile archaeology and textile field generally is not very well developed. But my connection with textiles started very early, because when I was very young, I used to stay around my mother, which she is a professional tailor, and she's also a very experienced knitter. So when me and my twin sister, we were very young, we were all the time surrounded by sewing machines and patterns of tailoring, and also a lot of textile fabrics. So when I grew up and I went to high school, I also did some fashion design courses. And I had like a 2 years fashion design course, and I used also to participate to many national contests. And it seems that I was pretty good, because I used to won a lot of diplomas and stuff like that. So everybody, my professor, my family, they really felt that I will go into the art university in Bucharest, and I will just follow the courses of fashion design, faculty. And when they heard that I'm going to history, they were pretty disappointed. But I was so in love with archaeology and history in general. And I said, okay, if I will not try to become an archaeologist, maybe I will be all my life, I will feel sorry for this. So when I came in Bucharest and I started the courses of the Faculty of History, I started to go and do archaeological field work. And I started to search for a specialization. And then I observed that there is something in Romania that is not so well developed, and people are not interested at all in textiles, in archaeology. And then I thought that it could be a good idea to follow this way and try to specialize myself and basically to open the way for textiles in my country too, because we have very few people that are really interested and are doing actual work on textile and textile tools in Romania.
Alina, can I ask you a question about this? Because
Yeah.
do you also, work on like traditional Romanian clothes when you had your courses, or was it only like modern fashion style?
It was only a creative course. We need to do to design the garments by ourselves and the costumes. And with these models that we created, we participated in contests and we had exhibitions and stuff like that. But we never did practical work. I have some tailoring, experience from my mother, but there, because we were very young, we were in high school, all that we did, it was only drawing, and imagining. Yeah. And about traditional, no, nothing like that. It was another course, on ethnography, but I didn't follow that one. And I was never interested in ethnography until recently. I think 5 or 6 years ago, I started to have my own collection of traditional Romanian dresses and stuff like that. But till now, yeah, I wasn't not so interested in traditional textiles.
Oh, it's very interesting. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about you guys? How did you start it? How did you become interested in textiles?
In my case, I didn't have any practical background on textiles, or in fact, when I was a child, I wasn't interested in textile activities just because it was something that it was socially associated and kind of put into what is supposed to be done by women. So that's something that at first made me reject the topic. But I was always interested in archaeology, so I was doing my undergrad, and I had to do a piece of work for uni, and it was about Hallstatt. So that's when I knew about Karina Grome's work. But at the time, I remember being fascinated, but also saddened, because I thought that this type of work was only possible like in Hallstatt because of the salt mines, and that it was impossible to do in Spain. Luckily, and also I think life is a bit funny at times, I met 2 years after that my supervisor, and she said to me when we were talking about research and lines of research, and she mentioned textiles. So I had that moment of reminiscence of that time when I first knew about Hallstatt, and I said, yes, let's go. So I started researching like for my degree dissertation, and I've been supported by my supervisor. So she was a huge part, because she made me see that it was possible to do research in Spain, which is funny because there's been like 100 years of research in textiles in Spain, but students don't get to know about that, because textiles as an archaeological vestige is not taught during the undergrad of archaeology history. There's no information at all. So it's funny that I had to meet the work that Karina in Austria was doing to be interested in the topic. Now I've seen that, of course, we have a lot of things to still do and a lot of work that already has been done, but it was thanks to the supervision of my supervisor and her interest in the topic that I realized that it was possible. Because sometimes I feel like if as a student you don't know about textile, it's impossible to actually think about it. If you don't see it as a proper reality of research, it's really hard. So I think we need to introduce the topic in the undergrads, because it's just as other like textile vestiges, there's a lot of archaeology, so textiles should be included, and I think it's really important for new generations to have that information, because if not, people won't get interested, but just because they don't know about it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I must say that, for example, I feel very sorry that in Romania, the universities in Romania, we don't have courses, not necessarily exclusively on textiles, but I mean, for example, organic and non-organic and inorganic materials in archaeology, and how can we treat them, and in this way, at least one course about textiles per year to undergraduates, I don't know, so it would be important for younger students and to find out about the possibility of being interested in things like that. Because in Romania, for example, there is a misunderstanding. My more experienced colleagues that are doing pottery and other materials that are hard materials, they believe that you cannot do textiles because the climate in Romania didn't allow the preservation of materials like textiles, and you don't have the subject of your specialization to study. And when I'm trying, for example, to explain about the loom weights and spindle wheels and other tools for textile production, they think that, oh, but those are only stones. What stones? What can we find out from them? You know?
Exactly, that is the same scenario in Spain. Like the narrative was, okay, so we have a certain type of climate that is not good for organic materials, so we don't have textiles, so we shouldn't study textile research, which is crazy to think about it. There's more than textiles.
Yeah, for me, my grandmother taught me to do textile stuff early, like crocheting, knitting. I learned to use a sewing machine when I was like 8, and I forgot all of that when I went to school. And I was like, oh, I don't care about that. That's girly stuff, whatever, right? But then I went to university, and I studied medieval history, and I'm come from Canada, so to come to Iceland was kind of a big jump. But I started off studying Viking history, and it just felt like it's been, I don't know, it's very popular recently, and I kind of wanted to shift what I was studying to something a little bit unique. So then I came into the textile part of it by in my coursework reading about this type of cloth that was so important in Iceland's history in the medieval period, but today people don't know about it at all, but yet wool in textiles are an important part of the cultural heritage with the national costume, and like the knitting and the Icelandic sweater is important for tourism. So I felt like there was a disconnect between the past and the present. So that kind of led me to thinking about how textiles need to be included more in history, the study of history in Iceland. So that kind of led me to go back to this important medieval textile. So then, yeah, that this EuroWeb has been pretty cool to take me out of the documents and meet more people who do hands-on stuff and archaeology stuff that I don't get to learn about in my own department. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
That's so cool. And do you craft textiles at the moment, or are you?
Yeah, I got back into it. So I do knitting, and then I tried to teach myself weaving, but that's very difficult, but more embroidery and stuff too. So I'm back in it now.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's funny how most of us also have like a crafting background, like, and also from the family. Like Meghan said, also my grandmother was working as a tailor in war times, and then my mother was sewing some Halloween costumes for me because like they were a bit cheaper than buying them, and so I was like also having quite the contact on textile craft. But I wasn't that interested, as you said, Meghan said, like as a child, like I didn't care so much. And before I started studying archaeology, I got into living history. And over living history, I started to, research about textiles and archaeology. And I thought this was very interesting. And I wanted to gain more insights, and, started practicing all those textile crafts like weaving and sewing and tailoring and all the stuff. And during my studies at the university for my BA and for my MA, I thought, well, the textile archaeology is such an underrated topic, as always, everywhere, also in Germany. It's like no chance to learn anything about textiles if you are not interested in by yourself. So I managed to get through my BA without any textile related, professor or something. But then for my master's, I thought, well, I need to have some more insight. I need to learn like the real stuff. And then I went to Carina Grömer to Austria, and she was my second supervisor for my master's thesis. And then I learned so much more than I would ever thought. And also said like, wow, this is a huge, this is a huge thing, and nobody in Germany also most of it, they don't know about it, and they don't realize that textile archaeology and all the related textile tools and everything is a thing. So I was very passionate about it, and I'm very glad that we can all connect to each other also through EuroWeb and all the other conferences. And this is very it's quite unique, I think, that we are such a small community and also well networked. I think in bigger parts of archaeology, it's not the case. I think most of them are just sitting in their offices and working for themselves. And I think like the networking, the connection, and also maybe like the understanding of the craft we are analyzing is very unique. And I love this about textile archaeology. So yeah, I'm very glad that I that I managed to go deeper into textile archaeology, even if it's hard work for all of us, yeah, managing your own way.
Ronja, I was wondering, so when you decided to do textile archaeology, what was the reaction of your colleagues, of your professors? So how that decision was received?
Yeah. Funny enough that my first supervisor for my bachelor and my master's, like, he was so open-minded. He said, yeah, do it. I have no idea how to do textile archaeology. I have no idea how this works, but you can do it. Just have fun, So he was quite surprised when I laid my master thesis on the table, and he had a first look at all, that is the work. And he said, well, I could have never imagined that this is such a huge thing, like I said. But he was very open-minded, and I was lucky enough that he was so chill about it. I think if you have a professor who's just like, no, I don't know about this, better don't do it, maybe that could also be the case, right? I mean, how about you, Leyre? Was it easy enough?
I think I like to compare like the reaction of people with what the general public will react to being an archaeologist. So sometimes people say, oh, that's super cool, but it stays in that area of hobby, fascination, don't really know what you're doing because it's textile, right? Do you actually get textiles? And part of my teachers, because of course my supervisor was super supportive, she was into textiles, so that was great. But beyond that, I would say that the reaction in general was a bit of a skepticism. So people were like, you're a really good student, why would you do textiles? Right? Because that's not a line of research, and especially in Spain, like, what are you gonna do? Like, why are you throwing yourself away into that direction? Funny enough, I've seen a switch, because as soon as my work started to materialize, like in papers, or maybe myself participating in international congresses and things like that, those people are now like interested on the topic. So I think the reaction sometimes is based on ignorance. So there's not enough knowledge on the topic. So they don't see the possibilities and the importance, because textile is really specialized, but textiles informs about past societies. So the implication of what we do is important for other archaeologists that do other things. So it's been changing. And sometimes I feel like the response now is good, but in an opportunistic way. For other people is genuinely nice and they've seen the importance. But yeah, I think I'm starting, like with the other colleagues of Spain that were starting to do more things, we're changing a bit the perception, and I think that's super important. So what about Alina and Meghan?
Oh, well, you remember, girls, about my beginnings, and when I was very young, I remember I was finishing bachelor, I think, and well, I knew only that I would be interested to do something about costume, about textiles, but not exactly what I would like to do. And I remember that at that time, the director of the American School of Classical Studies in Athens, he came to Bucharest and he had a presentation of the school in my university. And in the end, he remained for a while at the Department of Ancient Studies in our faculty. And we were a few students staying with him and chatting a little bit. And we presented ourselves and we said, okay, I'm interested to do pottery, I'm interested to do numismatic. And I said that I would like to do something related with textiles. And he told me, I mean, there is somebody called Margarita Gleba that is a very well-known and well-established specialist in the field, and she had a lecture in Athens, and she will come and held in March next year another lecture in Thessaloniki. So if you are interested, you can go there and you can meet her and see the lecture and stuff like that. I was so young. I heard a little bit about Margarita, but I didn't know very, very many things. So I just took a note. Okay, Margarita Gleba will come to Thessaloniki in March 2016, I think it was. And in the following year, because in Romania we have absolutely nobody, at least in Bucharest, to give me a clue about textiles in general, I decided to go in Thessaloniki and meet Margarita and audiate the lecture. And I remember that I went from Bucharest 8 hours with the car with Liviu, my husband, who is also an archaeologist, and we went to Thessaloniki to see that lecture and to see Margarita. And in the beginning, I didn't understood a thing because it was a very complex lecture about types of weaves and the direction of spun yarn and stuff like that. And I didn't know almost anything. I was so, in the beginning, just with a basic idea of wishing to study something about costumes in antiquity. And then I got in touch with Margarita. It was a very nice experience for me, and I understood that if I really want to do something really serious, I need to go out of Romania and learn, about textiles from other people that are really specialists. And I must say that if in the beginning people in Romania said, okay, my professors from the university, I was excavating with them on archaeological sites in the summer, and and they told me, why do you want to do textiles? I mean, we don't have textiles at all. But those are only some stones. You cannot learn anything from them. I also received later, when I really started, to study textiles and to be interested seriously in looms, tools, spindleworks, and stuff like that, I received another type of negative feedback. There were people that criticized me for choosing as a topic of my PhD something related with Greece and not Romania. They felt somehow that I betrayed Romania. I don't know. How did she choose to study spools or lumates and stuff like that from Greece and not from Romania? But I must say, now looking in the, it was the best decision that I made, because we have these Greek colonies, and when I see here loomwates and spindleworks that are influenced, from the Mediterranean, right away I know what they are, where they are coming from, and stuff like that. It's super easy. For example, it was a wonderful ivory distaff in the museum of local museum in my country, in a Greek colony, discovered on a Greek colony, and it was discovered 100 years ago or something like that, and nobody knew that it is a distaff. They said that it might be a hairpin or something like that, or something like a rewriting device, but nobody knew that it is a textile tool. And when I saw it, I said, okay, it's a distaff, it's a Roman distaff, it's this, this date, and it has these analogies because I went out in Greece and I had this experience. Otherwise, just researching locally and knowing only the material from the Black Sea, I wasn't able to have this, experience. So in the end, my decision was a good one. Yeah, even if, despite the fact that many colleagues that are more experienced, they somehow said that it wasn't fair for me doing a PhD on a topic in Greece. And what is interesting is the fact that I did my PhD at the University of Bucharest. So I never left Romania.
Mhm.
I choose, to come with a topic from the Aegean in my country. And I managed somehow to do all this thesis and to defend it here. So now I'm really hoping that in the future my colleagues that saw that this is possible, you shouldn't research only locally, you are able to go and pick up something from outside Romania and just enlarge your vision and be able to have a larger picture of a phenomenon or of a domain. It's really okay and you can do it. Yeah. And Megan, what about you?
Yeah. For me, it was when I proposed my PhD topic, it was fine. And like, yeah, go for it. But it's kind of, you jump into the pool on your own and you have to figure things out. And I don't know about your countries, but my country, it's kind of a disconnect between the craft tradition, and there's lots of like home industry associations where they teach you to do weaving and stuff like that. And there's textile research centers, but they're more for fashion design and stuff. So for me, academia and the craft tradition was kind of removed. So it has been kind of learning to find my own way here. And there's not a lot of, in my own university, facilities or departments to people to network with. It's been more going outside of my department. And I don't know, is it the same for you, ladies? Did you have to, make international connections, find other research labs to work with? How is it for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like now, I think I'm in a privileged position because there's like 3 or 4 young early career scholars that are doing textiles in different periods in Spain, and we are connected to each other. And in fact, one of them, we were sharing the same department for this year, so that's super nice because we can talk about textiles. And when you have questions about the topic, at least you have a friend that knows what you're dealing with. But at first for me, I had to the reference was outside. And in that process, I also had to do a research and a review of what has been done in my country, because there were a lot of studies that were there, but my teacher didn't show them to me. So I've seen that we actually did a lot, but we weren't connected to the people that did that. And for example, in Spain, Carmen Alfaro, she did such an amazing work internationally for Spain. And it's funny that I first knew Karina than Carmen Alfaro, which is crazy because it's way more difficult to face the international sphere than the local one, but it was the case for me. So now I think I'm in a well balance, but without the international connection, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm now. So it has helped a lot to reach the high level specialists especially in Northern Europe, because in Northern Europe, thanks to the archaeological conditions, they've developed a lot of methodology and things like that. So it's been a huge role model for me. But now we're all working a lot internally in Spain to be connected with each other, with the people that we are actually doing it now. But yeah, I agree with Megan. Yeah, international, it was fundamental. Yeah.
So, well, in Romania, it will be unfair to say that I am the only one who is interested in textiles. And I knew when I started in textiles that there was at least one more person who worked before, and she's not so old. And she wrote some good studies, and she published really well outside Romania. She went to CTR. Paula Mazăre is her name. I really appreciate her work, and it's amazing what she did. But I tried to reach her. I wrote her emails, but it seems, I don't know, for whatever reasons, probably that she left the field. I tried to connect with other people that knew her in order to reach her, because she was in another city of Romania. I was never able, not even till today. I don't know her personally, so I don't even know if she's working anymore in the field. I don't think so. And I have another very young colleague that is working on textiles, but currently he is involved in many rescue excavations, and he's busy at the time with these things. It was very difficult, and it is difficult still for me to to connect with my colleagues from Romania that are or at least were in the past interested in textiles. But this is why I decided when I started with textiles to go and reach for specialists from above. And when I started to study sports, especially sports, because it's such a tiny topic, right? Such a big specialization. It's a niche of textile archaeology. It was Agata Olanowska from Poland, who I knew that she studied the Bronze Age schools from Greece. So I just decided to go to a conference in Poland and meet her and to propose her when I finish master to be my coordinator at my PhD. And unfortunately, she wasn't habilitated back then. She didn't have a habilitation and she couldn't coordinate me, but she was my mentor all the time. She's a very good friend and a wonderful person. She watched my steps all the time. She gave me the best criticism that I ever received. She's wonderful. She's very fair and very patient with younger scholars, and she's wonderful because she has this, is very open and likes to collaborate with younger people, and this helped me a lot in my formation. And I also had a hard time getting in touch with CTR, but not because of the CTR people are great, are wonderful. It was because I was very afraid, how will I be received there? I'm a very young scholar coming from Romania. When I went first time in Copenhagen at the Center for Textile Research, which is the most important, and everybody knows that there, for me, the light, in the field was at CTR, because I knew I'm going there, I will find out a lot of things and many people, and it's a wonderful environment to be. And when I won a scholarship in 2020, and they say you can use the scholarship and go for 3 weeks in Copenhagen whenever you want next year. And I postponed for 11 months my departure because I was afraid that, okay, who am I? And I'm very young and I don't have so much experience, And when I went there finally, because if I wasn't going, I was losing my scholarship. They just received me with open arms, and everybody was so kind and nice and wonderful people, first of all, friends, like a family. It's amazing. And I was, oh my God, I need to come back. And I went back a few times. And yeah, we are in touch right now. And I must say that, okay, coming from a country like Romania, like Eastern Europe countries that don't know, these domains like textile archaeology are not so well developed. There is another problem that we face these challenges. We are not sure that we can integrate, so easy in the field. And yeah, we need to fight this challenge too, not only the fact that we don't have mentors in our own country. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite hard. When I started dealing with textile archaeology, I was thinking, okay, to whom I can connect in the German-speaking areas. So it was mostly Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And I knew a few people in Germany, Johanna Bank-Burgess and Katrin Kania and stuff, but they were quite busy, and Katrin Kania was also not habilitated, so she wasn't in for supervising some work. So I was deciding to go to Austria, but also afterwards, like, connecting to those people is quite difficult because like Germany is also quite big, and most of the people are sitting in different areas in Germany. So I'm like in the northeastern part of Germany, like in Berlin, and you might think that Berlin is a big city. It's like the main city in Germany, and like huge amount of researchers who you can connect to, but it's actually quite difficult because like even if they are maybe researchers or field working and they find textiles, definitely here in Berlin we have quite a few, they are not telling anybody. So just like, oh, okay, we found something, like it goes into a shelf. And so like the last few years after my master's, like my main focus also was to make myself visible as a researcher, and to say to all the colleagues, hey, I'm here. If you have any questions or anything textile related, just contact me. I'm open for it. And to like Alina said, to always have some open arms for everyone, and to have this textile community flair and emotion, to all the other researchers around me. So, but that's quite difficult because all of the cultural, heritage departments everywhere here in the area. They're quite focused on their work, and they're not always looking, in the broader, area. So that's quite difficult. And also with the other colleagues, like not Katrin Kaya, I had the opportunity to work with her quite a lot, and she's a very, very great person, and also like very talented in craft and textile craft, and she's doing everything. And if I have any questions regarding textile craft, I can always ask her. So this is like a very good connection. It thrives. It's very good. But all the others are, like I said before, like this is kind of a typical German researchers thing. Like they're sitting in their office and working for their own and just not coming out. And it's so hard to get in contact with them and, to meet up or speak to them or have some, conversations with them. So it's always, difficult. And if you don't have such a thing like the CTR or also in Leiden or Carina in Austria, if you don't have a center or someone, who you're going to contact beside the, Margarita, Nagata, and Carina and everyone. So like also in the country here in Germany, it's so difficult. But like this is my personal goal to change this, to create some kind of a meeting point. And like Berlin is a big city, everyone can, knows where it is and where you can find someone. So but this is hard, and always talking to people, always calling, always writing some emails, always going to the university and talk to people. It's almost like, you have to sell textile archaeology. I always like imagine, ringing on the door, I sell textile archaeology, please see me, please contact me. Like this
Well,
is
that's
most of the time.
That's useful that you brought into discussion the question of how do we get in touch with other colleagues from our own region, and how do we convince them to collaborate with us and to know about us. Because oftentimes I just receive I'm very active on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, and I post a lot. And since I began with textiles, I started to post about my formation, my courses, and when I'm going to international conferences, when I'm publishing a paper, I just share all of this. And many of my colleagues that are not textile archaeologists, of course, but they are archaeologists in general, and they excavate and they find things related to textiles. They know that, okay, it is Alina Iancu that it's doing something with textiles. And sometimes I receive messages on Facebook, for example, like, hello, Alina, I wanted to ask you if you have an idea about this. And they send a photo with a phone, with a cell phone of a textile, no scale, no indication of the context, nothing about, how big it is, no idea. The colors could be somehow, also alterated or deformed by the cell phone and the light and so on. And I'm like, okay, but can you tell me something more about this? Where it was discovered? It is newly discovered? It is an older textile? And they want for me to tell them what material it is, if it is wool or if it is cotton, just looking at a photo, and to say how old it is, if it's ancient or if it's a modern textile. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. We need to take a sample and we need to put it under the microscope and we need to see the structure of the fiber in order to identify if it is an animal based, or a plant fiber and so on. It is super complex. It doesn't work like that. And then I had some proposal, for example, to collaborate with other colleagues. And some of them told me, okay, we have textiles, you can come and see them and study them. And they never reached back to me, even if I was interested, because they have other more important things probably to do. And I know that everybody is very busy. Or other colleagues that told me, okay, I can send you tomorrow the textile via a fast shipping company. And it's an ancient textile. Can you send it via, it could be contaminated, it could be dangerous, it could be lost. And also there is the problem that we offer ourselves to help our colleagues. And the question is, do we have infrastructure for doing this. For example, I study a lot of textile tools, and I bought a master soil color chart, which is quite pretty expensive. And I also have a microscope, a portable one, to go on the site and study the clay and the, and I also bought from my personal, funding, which I was able to, during the years, to save. I have another microscope who has a huge magnifications for textiles, because in Romania, I don't have access to a lab where I can go and, analyze the samples. So I have my own already. I have my own lab at home, just in my living room. So that's a good
me too.
question. Yeah. How can we solve the problem with the academic infrastructure and the lack of equipment and access to laboratories? Yeah.
I think that is still really dependent on having a professor that is interested in the topic, because I was lucky that my professor, although it wasn't her field, her main field, she was interested, she already worked on it, so it was easier that way. But even like in my department, we didn't have a specific materials to study textiles. Like we need to go to other places, and it's like a work in progress. That happens also with bibliography. The majority of the bibliography is not open access. Many of the university, they don't have textile archaeology books, and especially if they are recent, they don't have it. So you just need to like try to get them online. So it is a huge barrier that we're facing, but hopefully as new young scholars are getting interested in these topics, we will progressively change this situation. And I wanted to discuss something that Alina said, is that she was afraid as a young scholar, like to go to the CTR, so to a first level institute of textile, and to reach out with the big professionals, right? So I think this is a common shared thing between young researchers, especially if in your country you don't have much information about textile archaeology and you need to go abroad. And for example, for me personally, I was afraid of reaching out, because sometimes at university they teach you that there's this barrier in between the student and the professional. And one of the best things of textile research is that people are really accessible. Like they're super eager to work with you. They're really friendly. And unfortunately, that is not always the case. So one of the good things for young scholars is that it's easy to reach out to them. People generally want to work. And that is something that has been massively helpful, I think, because it's super specific, but at least people are like really open to work. So that is super nice.
I agree with that. I have found that meeting other, especially young career textile people, it's community over competition. Other fields, people keep their sources, information, methods really close about me first, but I find textile people, everything is shared. It's like, oh, you're doing this, you have to hear about this person, you need to talk to this person. So I find that's been fantastic about sharing is a great thing here.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I had problems finding a good chemistry person that helped me to do analysis on textiles in Romania, I find out about this person from somebody from Greece. She told me, okay, Alina, I work in this laboratory with this lady. She's very good. You should contact her. It's amazing. I mean, because in Romania, we don't know each other and we never work together, but people from other countries, they already did the network and they know each other and they share this. It's amazing. It's a very good thing. And I think that, I don't know, in domains that have an older tradition, all these beginnings, maybe in the beginning they were also very friendly and like a big, huge family. And this just disappeared. Meanwhile, for example, I don't know if this is available, or this is also happening with the pottery people or numismatics, but in textiles, everybody, it's so friendly and so nice. And we don't have like old professors that don't want to stay to speak with you because you are too young and you don't have so much experience. Yeah, it's amazing how they react, and they just share with you their ideas, and it's never this gap, generational.
Hierarchy, you mean, like
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
a professor, I don't talk to other students. Like, yeah, the hierarchy is quite low. And I also think that quite the advantage is that textile archaeology is not that kind of an old field, like established since 1800, blah, 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 but it's, quite new, and all the new research, and that we are all like mostly on not the same level, but also like working on the same stuff and having mostly the same problems. And, like this is more of a, I don't know, like it's moving more than all of the other, archaeology fields, like in
yeah,
pottery or in stone or something, because they're so established, they're used to it, they have their hierarchy, but that's not the case in textile archaeology. And I think that's very refreshing to have this community and, sharing everything and realizing, hey, we're all sitting in the same boat. So there's nothing to worry about. We can figure everything out together. And I think also quite the issue is that, of course, we have to say that we are in textile archaeology quite a lot of women, and this is like also not very common in academia, that there are a lot of women in academia. And even if we say like, okay, we're in humanities and not like the real natural science, but we are also scientists. We work with a lot of different methods from the natural science. So that's not an issue, but we are also, working on this, and this is quite a special field. And I think I'm very thankful like for having this community and, working with all of these great women and men together when they are also some. So we can also have all the students, yeah, to tell them you can go into textile archaeology. So everyone is welcoming you there.
yeah.
Now, Ronja, that you were mentioning that it's true that the majority of the textile archaeologists are women. That is also a factor that I believe has been detrimental in the sense that it wasn't studied, because textile production, like, it's known to be like women the main protagonists of the activities. So now that also the field in archaeology is changing and more voices of women are present, I think like that has helped massively to also like take a different look at different perspectives, and topics that were in research like maybe 100 years ago now are getting the validation and also the space to be researched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting that outside the field, for example, if I look back, all the criticism that I received, it was from male colleagues, but not from women, never, But I am very happy to see that other things like textiles, not only the craft itself, not only the technologies, but also textiles used for example, for military uses, they started to be researched and promoted, this type of analysis. And that's amazing, because in this way, indeed, our colleagues that in the past were very interested in, for example, in war and how soldiers were kept and fight, they can now bring this light and just open the question of how textiles were used for war, for sieges and stuff like that. That's amazing, because all the time it's place for a new question, for a new problematic. And I think that our colleagues that did something more traditional can come with their vision, and bring some new data for textiles in general, and find out new things and enlarge the picture that we have of the textiles in the past. Yeah. So basically, there are good opportunities, but also a lot of challenges in this field. Yeah, and it's very important that I think that in the last years, I started textiles, I think 10 years ago, and I saw how it evolved, how I grew up, into the field. And I think the last years brought a major contribution for all of us that are younger and started to film themselves. And if I look back, I think that the most, because I had, for example, a lot of interest to go in Greece and studied there and have my connections with Greek archaeologists and with museums that give me materials. And this made me, for example, gave me the opportunity of not being so, how can I say, not depend so much of my Romanian colleagues that, okay, to give me material, because otherwise I wouldn't have what to study. And now if I look back, I say that it wasn't only this. This is a part of the picture that we go and find our topics and we start to study and to train ourselves. But indeed, developing in the framework of a bigger project, as it is, for example, EuroWeb, it brings so much new things and the opportunity of collaborating internationally. Okay, I was going in Greece, I was researching by myself. And then when I went there for the first time, I was also interested to meet a few local specialists like Stella Spandidaki, Cristina Margariti, Calliope Sari. They are great persons. And this was all for me, and also maybe to meet Agata because she's studying schools. But when EuroWeb started and we went to training schools and other events and we met each other, and I think that here, somehow I met all of you personally in various EuroWeb events.
Yeah.
We started to collaborate and we started to create things together, not individually. And yeah, that's amazing, the fact that we can create bigger projects. And I think that in the future we will stay in touch. That's the best part. It's not like a one-time conference. You go there, you met somebody, and maybe you see that person again after 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
A bigger project like this one, like a coast action, it gives you the opportunity to stay in touch for a few years with the colleagues. And
yeah, but it's also like easier to stay in touch and to connect because like we have all the digital ways, and I think also in the last years also like the pandemic was hard, but it showed us that we can connect each other digitally via Zoom or on different servers online. And I think EuroWeb was giving the platform to work this out, and we can use it anytime we want. And yeah, to make also like the text archaeology like visible. I think about when the atlas was now released. Like this is of course for the community, for all the countries in Europe, but also for us as a researcher, quite a good way to visualize everything we're doing, we did, and we will do, like onto a very accessible way. And like I don't have any correlation to any other archaeology part where this is done in this way, because all of it, I mean, they all want to do this probably, but they all struggle like with money and funding and who's doing it, and do we have like the people who are trained into like these digital stuff and so on. And I think Europe has like a very good overview about what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and with whom are we going to do it. And it's just a perfect way, I think, for textile archaeology.
I agree with you. And maybe there are people that don't know about this atlas and how it was made. We also wrote a paper that will be published in Purpure Vestes forthcoming volume about the history of the atlas. Because in the beginning, it was an individual project, okay? So Mikkel Nordhoff from Copenhagen, he had this master project, I think, and he created an atlas. It was his own project, and he decided that he will go for a PhD that is not related at all with textiles, and he will just quit that little, map with textiles. And then EuroWeb started as a new project, an international project, and it was there the proper moments to integrate his projects, and he was generous enough to donate this idea to the group. And when we started, we had no idea how can we develop it in such a large scale. We were like 3-4 people, and when, for example, when they contact me, when Mikkel Nordhoff and other colleagues from the Center for Textile Research, I said, are you sure that you want me? I mean, okay, I'm working in the National of Heritage Studies and I have a little bit of knowledge about georeferentiation and stuff like that, the GIS, but I I'm not sure that I can be able to develop such an important project. And they say we can try it together. And I must say that it was the best thing that I ever worked on, even if I did it for free in my weekend sometimes, and I traveled a lot, and I did a lot of training. I trained myself, and I trained afterwards others, and I also worked with students and with volunteers. And it's amazing to see that, for example, volunteers from the University of Bucharest, which were very young and they were not part of the EuroWeb project, and they didn't have the qualification to be part of the EuroWeb project because they were only bachelor back then. They wanted to collaborate and help us because they wanted to learn how to work with this digital data, And in the end, we did an atlas from almost nothing, and other people from other, for example, because the EuroWeb is a huge project with hundreds of participants, and there are these working groups, they helped us a lot. And Meghan here, for example, with her colleagues in terminology, they gave us a lot of help, and it was very complex, everything. We had a lot of meetings, and we collaborated how to integrate the proper terminology, who are we addressing to. And I think, and I want to hear also your opinion on this, now I think that we are a very well established international group in Europe, the textile people. There is also an EAA group of textile people coordinated by Margarita Gleva, and we know each other and we collaborate, we create things like the Atlas. How do we see, and how do you see sharing our knowledge and all the textile stories to the large public? Because I think that the Atlas is one way, and we had a very important part of our activity was based on how can we integrate textiles in a way to be friendly also with the broad public, not only with the specialists. Because we don't write and we don't study only for ourselves and our colleagues, okay? We want to share it with other people too.
Yeah, but that's the thing about science communication to the broad public. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to do it, and textile archaeology needs still to be approved of the community of the public. That we get money from the states maybe for funding, and they want to know what are we doing with the money? What is the main focus on our research? And public outreach and science communication and all the different ways is so important, and it can be quite easily done with textile archaeology because it's such a relatable topic, textiles and clothing and everything that's human related. It's so pleasant to work with also with the community. And even if you're doing something on social media, if it's some digital stuff like the Atlas or something, or just going out and having other science communication methods, is so important to reach out and to, to make the textile world approachable.
Yeah, we see this in the history field too. We had the International Medieval Congress this year, and this is the first time we had a whole day session for textiles, right? And it's not just us getting together, but it's other people, their colleagues come to the presentations and, oh, I never thought about textiles that way, or, getting people from outside of the textile fields to think that, we are important, and, there's so many connections between things.
Yeah, and I think that we should display more to the large public this, because I mean, in all this era with fast fashion and not so sustainable trends, synthetic fibers that are polluting, all the planets, maybe people are starting to be more aware of the relevance of and the importance of natural fibers, and how they basically, in the history before the industrial times, there were no synthetic materials, and people used to live much better using only natural resources. Yeah, so the relevance is undoubtedly very, very important, and we need to share this to the large public and our colleagues that are not specialized in textiles.
And I think also the great public is really eager to learn about textiles, because, for example, at my university with my supervisor, we recreated a Roman vertical loom, and we had the challenge of facing how to start sewing in a vertical loom, which was a true struggle to put everything together. But after since we've been having the loom, a lot of people, both from archaeology and other fields like history and things like that, they were really interested, and they've been requesting us to do demonstrations and things like that. And also, I think that could be easily translated into the bigger audience, you know, because like textile is what we wear every single day. It's probably the industry, the contemporary industry that earns more money. Like textile is something that everyone is interested in because of different scenarios and circumstances. So I think like there's a bright future ahead of us in even if we're like at different stages in different countries, like people are really interested about textile. It's about our identity, it's our heritage. So also like we're losing like the craft abilities. It's super hard even for us as textile specialists to get someone to teach us how to do those techniques. But I think we have also the responsibility of preserving this intangible heritage, and I think people are gonna receive it like really well. And I remember Agata Ulanoska that she did like a seminar or workshop with people from Ukraine, and she was sharing how impactful textile and the practical aspect of textile is for different purposes. So it has something special that can connect us all. So I think we have the topic to reach everyone, and we are lucky that we have a close-knit network. And I believe that in the future, like if we keep working like together and trying to also like jump into other like types of archaeology, like we will reach a bigger audience for sure. And we're all really passionate. Like that's something that I love about the textile group, is that everyone is really passionate about what they do, and I think that is key. Like if you like what you do, then it's perfect.
Perfectly said, Leyre.
And I mean, like I'm still learning. Like I don't know how to sew. Like this is something. It's a generational thing, because nowadays, like if your clothes break, you just buy new ones, right? So that's also a challenge for early scholars, like to approach an artisanal activity that you don't have any practical knowledge on. Now that I've started to get some hands-on approach, I'm realizing that that you can read research, and that person might not have any idea on the practical aspect. And if you have some practical abilities, you will easily tell, because sometimes it's more simple because it's practical. So there's certain dynamics that is super important, that as young scholars that we made the effort to reach out to the old generations. That is also like really nice experience, because it's also a dialogue in between like younger generation and old generation, and to see how, for example, my grandmother teaches me her practical abilities, and to in my case, like show her what we can do through archaeology. It's like really beneficial mutually, and it's like a really nice connection that we really need to nurture. Like I've been told this year, like in Leiden, where I went to do a textile intensive course, that truly the last generation of people with the abilities are starting to get retired. If the new generation don't acquire the knowledge, we will reach a point in which we won't be able to pass on the skills, and that's really sad.
Do you have like experimental archaeology courses in Spain, Leyre? Do you have some practical
but it's
stuff?
not textile experimental. You know, so another like huge thing, which is a bit annoying, is that I'm also with other like Spanish colleagues that are doing textile in the progress and on the work of reaching out to the different scholars that approach textile in some way, because we don't know in between each other. And that is really sad, because another huge deal is maybe you're a historian, maybe you're an archaeologist, but also there's a lot of people in conservation that are the ones that have the skill, and sometimes the communication is not there. So it's really important that we get to collaborate and that we do the effort. I had to go to Lisbon to a workshop to meet a lady that had all the skills and abilities, and I know her now, but just because she came to a workshop in Lisbon. So we need to improve our own country's networks in between the fields, not just archaeology, history, also like conservation. There's fashion, design. There's a lot of people dealing with textile in different ways. So it's good at the international level, but it's sad that when you look at your own country, the connections aren't there. For some reason, we haven't reached out. So
Yeah.
is it the same for you? Like, do you feel like in your countries, like people are not well connected? I feel like internationally is better connected than locally, personally.
Yeah, it's the same. The same is in Romania, and it's I think it's especially with these newer trends like textiles. For example, I'm having the privilege of living in a country in Eastern Europe where traditions are still alive. So I don't need to find to search a lot to find a good spinner or weaver, you know. Somebody who knows how to work with raw wool and process the fibers or stuff like that. We still have at home, for example, the looms from our grandmothers. Okay, it's not the warp-weighted loom, of course, but there are traditional hand looms and maybe even fibers and stuff like that that they used to work with. On the other hand, when it comes about professionals, for example, we have a very successful project in Romania that started, I think, 6 years ago. It's the Museum of Textiles. We never had a museum dedicated entirely to textiles up to this moment. And there is somebody that came from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She was the head of the textile conservation department for, I think, 13 years. And she worked 28 years at the Metropolitan Museum just studying and researching and conserving textiles. And she came back because she's a Romanian. And she came back in Romania and she went to her native village where she grew up. And she decided to make a private museum dedicated to traditional textiles. She got in touch with the local authorities and she received, you know, a place where she did this museum. But this is some 100 kilometers away of Bucharest. She came once in Bucharest to promote this very new museum, and I went to that presentation. It was plenty of people. I wasn't able to get in touch with her and to speak a little bit with her, but then I decided I want to go there and I want to meet her and I want to get in touch with her because it's really incredible to live in the same country and not be able to know each other. And we just took the car and did a vacation in Hunedoara, which is the region of Romania where it is this museum. And I just called to the museum, okay, I'm an archaeologist and I want to come to visit the museum. And we met. And it's only, generally, it's only by individual, you know, efforts that we are able to meet each other. And also other people, okay, I'm not speaking only about textile archaeologist or archaeologist interested somehow, you know, with this domain, but also ethnographers, conservators, restorators in general. We didn't know each other. I didn't know, for example, a very important, the Romanian representative for EuroWeb, which is Florica Măță and Irina Petroviciu, that are interested in textile tools and textile conservation. We didn't know before EuroWeb, you know, and that's amazing. A project from nowhere is coming and we all get united in Romania and outside Romania and we meet each other. And I'm super curious. And I also want to hear the others' opinion, but I'm also very curious to ask you, how do you see yourself evolving in this domain in the following, like, let's say 10 years? Yeah, but first let's see what Meghan has to say about her connection with the local specialism.
I think that maybe mine is a little bit different because I'm not from Iceland and there's a little bit of a language barrier too. Like my Icelandic, I'm learning, but it's not fluent. So there are like there's the Handicraft Association, which is more kind of like a guild. So they teach courses in embroidery and the traditional costume, but again, it's a language barrier and a cost barrier because it costs money to do it. But they're very nice people, and they're always like they answer questions you have and stuff. And there's a place to go to buy old pattern books and talk to people. There's also a research center in the north that has some looms, but also modern looms, like digital looms and stuff. But you need to have be able to get there, first of all, because it's in the north. It's not accessible because I don't have a car. And you need to have money to take time off of your research. Like, I think time and money are a big factor too. So if you're not part of the networks in the country, it's hard to get into it. And as Alina said, it's individual effort. And I have my own networks in Canada, so I don't spend my vacations necessarily going around Iceland trying to make connections. I have family and friends back home too. So it's a challenge, but I think in the future, looking towards the future, if I want to stay in Iceland for research, I kind of have to make my own way still, and making those personal connections are important for that. But also because I think I'm the only textile person in my department, it's kind of arguing and making space for textiles to stay in my department. Like, me and a colleague, we created a course that I'm teaching next semester. She also studies material culture, but she studies dairy. So it's a very, it is a tangible thing, but it's something new to the department, that to study milk and butter. And we're making a course for textiles and dairy of like things that were very important in the past, but we're kind of having to do this on our own to make our own spaces. So in the future, it's individual effort and kind of forging your way, but also you have the personal connections that you make on your own are important.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's a bit scary, like the question of how you see yourself in the future, especially hopefully with a PhD, I guess. Like, hopefully the PhD ends in a good in a good place. But I think one of the things that we're seeing, at least in Spain, is like we're the new generation, we're making a lot of awareness to the rest of the community. And one of the huge works that I'm partly doing and other people are doing is to revise all the data from all archaeological excavation. Alina already mentioned that with the distaff example, there's a lot of tools that weren't recognized as such. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of showing the community what a distaff is, what a loom weight is, what a spindle whorl it is, because then in the new excavations, these materials will be recognized as such. So I think we should balance both, like analyzing the work that has already been done but not correctly analyzed, and the new one that will emerge, so because I feel like we as an archaeologist, we like to excavate all the time, but there's a lot of work to be done with all excavations. So to balance that, I think it's important. And I hope that with the new research of early scholars, that we not only reach internationally and things like that, but also that inside our communities of archaeology, hopefully like it gets integrated like in other projects, not just textile projects. Because, for example, in my case, I'm really well supported with my supervisor. Now she got a new textile project with money, which is really nice. So in that new project, it covers the Roma Lusitania. So it's exciting because we will be like working with people from Portugal, which is something also like quite new, because we haven't like worked together yet. I know it's surprising, but it's what it is. And hopefully in the future, we can expand to other regions of Spain, and also integrating in new questions. Hopefully it's not just textile projects, but a general historical or archaeological project that includes also the textiles. Because if not, we're all the time, I think, depending on having projects really specialized. And we like have this danger of only understanding in between the specialists and people could get that barrier of, okay, this is so technical, I don't understand it, so I don't see how this could complement another type of research. So hopefully in the future we are more integrated also in other projects that are not necessarily textiles. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about you? What about you? How do you see yourself, Ronja, in 10 years?
I was thinking all the time about this question. It's so difficult because like I think everything can happen in the next 10 years. So I'm not, I haven't like definite plans, but I wish for the acceptance and to infiltrate text psychology into the museums, into the universities, and everywhere where there's public space and where there's new students, and to work on this. Like this is my wish and my goal that I can maybe, I don't know, I mean I have to manage this on my own. So I don't know if this is like at the moment, most of you also felt alone probably at some point of your research. And I'm also at this point. So I wish for more students and for more textile people. And I hope in 10 years that there are a few more people in Germany and that we're all well connected. And then we will always have some courses in the universities and we have some exhibitions in the museums, also related to textile. But I also want to, I want to have like all the combination, like Leyre said, the working together with all the conservators, with all the craft people, with all the textile people, and like I'm also working in an open air museum with also like living history people and experimental archaeology people, all of those areas who are working with textiles and who have some knowledge and to be open-minded to break these academic walls, to don't be, like there are prejudices like, oh, academic people are so arrogant, they're always sitting in their bubble talking difficult words and stuff. But I don't want to create this picture of a researcher. I want to be like I'm a normal person. Like I don't come from an academic background. I'm just a very normal, very poor grown up girl. So I want to create like this yeah, to deconstruct this barrier maybe.
What about you, Meghan? What do you think?
Yeah. That's kind of like the, finishing the PhD is the big goalpost.
Yeah.
But it is kind of scary to think about afterwards. My decision has to be maybe, since I come from North America, do I stay in Europe or do I go back to North America? And the textile field is very different there too. There's not ancient research there because it does, like, yes, people research ancient history, but there's not ancient history there. So I have to make a decision where to go. So it's a little bit scary, but I would love to be still working in Europe and, having a history position, teaching a textile history course. I would love to see that, but yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go.
Okay, so
how do you guys feel that we as early scholars differ from the people that did this like 100 years ago? So my question is, how have we changed? What are like the main differences in what we now encounter versus what they had, like the kind of the precursors of the discipline? What are the differences? How do you feel about that?
well, I think that the infrastructure is different, and this can change everything. If you have now a good microscope and you have a good lab, you can just rewrite everything about textiles. In Romania, there were textiles that were new as being hemp, and now they say that it's metal just because they saw the structure of the fiber better. It's the infrastructure gives us a lot, and these new technologies brings the best change, the biggest change in the field, of course, and the ability of being able to master these new technologies, because not everybody knows and not everybody has access to good training. For example, people have equipments in poorer countries and they have some important projects and they they might buy some very fancy, you know, machines that can tell you a lot of data, but they don't know how to interpret this. And that's a pity. So to have good machines, good technology, and to have to master them, to know how to use them, and to know how to obtain the results, and then to know how to read these results. And this is a completely difficult way to achieve. And, you know, it requires a lot, first of all, a lot of finance, you need good projects, you need to be able to go and train yourselves many times abroad, and then to come back and be able to use these results and to interpret them in order to say a lot of beautiful stories about textiles in general, and to learn new things, and maybe to rewrite some older things, because we have a lot of old textiles in Romania from ancient times that they were discovered like 100 or 50 years ago, and they still lay in some deposits, and nobody knows about them. They were maybe published, okay, and we found a few textile scraps in a paper in 50 years ago. But if you find them back, for example, and it's another important thing, that now conservators are more cautious, and they don't throw away the organic parts that are present on some metal objects. And this is another big change. I think that this is so precious that you can find the sword from 4th century BC. Okay, we have this case in Romania, and they observed it was such a little, you know, little piece of textile that was mineralized there, and we could see the threads, the technique and stuff. It was amazing. I don't think that in the past this was possible. They used to just to knit them, to make them very clean, and to just throw away whatever it was not metal. Yeah.
I think a difference for my field is the arts and crafts. The difference between there isn't there anymore. I think my topic would not have been accepted in the past because, you know, everybody weaves woolen cloth. Why do you need to study a simple cloth? Whereas it would have been more about studying altar cloths or fancy, you know, highbrow textiles versus things you make at home are not worthy of being studied. So it's not arts versus craft, it's arts and crafts are accepted as topics to be studied.
Yeah.
And it's also like we are not aiming for all this jewelry and stuff from the excavations. Like, I think like the focus itself has switched rapidly, you know, towards common used stuff like textiles and textile tools, of course, because also like the tools were not a big issue 100 years before, right? I mean, they're like catalogs. We have like 100 spindle wheels. Who cares? Like, but you know, focusing on all these parts, and also question, like I said, if these tools are, you know, questioned, how are we going to interpret them? And most of us say that, well, this is probably a textile tool. So, like
Ronja, in Romania, there is still a big confusion. Is this a loom or it is a fishing net weight? Is it a spindle or is it a button? You know, they still come. Okay, because it is something that I did in the last years. I started excavate 10 years ago, and now I just shifted and I'm doing mainly lab work. And they are coming from the excavation because I'm in the deposit of the archaeological site, and they are coming with a spindle wheel, and they say, is it a spindle wheel? Yes, but it's so small. Okay, it has like 11 grams or 15 grams. It's a medium spindle wheel. You could have a very fine and nice thread with that. It's very good, you know, but it's so tiny. I know, but because they needed to have a very light yarn, and that's why it's so tiny. And it's only me on this archaeological site, but you can imagine that in Romania we have hundreds of archaeological sites, and I saw a situation that I was very sad about that, and maybe one day I will just write something about that. There is an archaeological site, and they published a report. I won't say here which one, which is the site, but they found in situ work-weighted loom. There are 2 rows of loom weight, and they publish it as fishing net weight. They said that it was a fish, you know, the fisher came home and he was so meticulous that he arranged on 2 rows, you know, and I was, no, that's a loom. They used to produce textiles, not to fish with that, you know, but yeah.
But even that happens, like in Spain. I am reviewing a lot of publications for my PhD, and sometimes to find the tools that I'm actually looking for, I need to take a look to 5 or 6 ways of naming them,
Yeah.
because until I see the picture of the piece, I cannot be extra sure that if the catalog is good, okay, or not. So I mean, there's a lot of work on educating archaeologists, the general public, just to say, this is a long weight, this is a distaff, this is a spindle. There's a lot of people that think that a distaff and a spindle is the same thing. And
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, I
It's
agree with
not.
you. And it's not easy. For example, I'm doing textiles in my free time. I'm working, okay, as a heritage specialist. I'm going to my office. I'm doing what I have to do there, and it's very interesting what I'm doing there. I really love what I'm doing. And then I came back and I'm starting to write, archaeology papers. And sometimes I also do some publications for large public, because we have these uh, journals in Romania that are addressed to to archaeology passionates and history passionates, but they are not professionals in the field, just normal people. And sometimes I will also write these kind of papers, and it's in my free time. Sometimes it's weekend, sometimes it's not easy. And that's why I asked you about how do you see your because I always ask myself, can this work in a long time run to do just because you are very passionate, because I really feel that Romania, for example, is not ready yet to integrate textile specialists in universities and in research institutes. And I am aware of the fact that probably all my life, or a big part of my life, I would work in an institution that's where I will not research exclusively textiles, let's say. For example, I was able to integrate all the digital atlas activity in my job, but I cannot go there and do research on textile tools in Greece, for example. But on the other hand, it's so rewarding when you find something new, when you research a topic that was not so well known before, and you are able to tell, hey, I discovered this, okay? It's so nice that you always find motivation to continue and don't feel that what you are doing is something that you sacrifice your own time. And it's also what is very nice, and I think that this is one of the biggest gains that we have uh, as a young researcher in this field. It's that we can also have a lot of fun, travel a lot, and have good experiences. It's not only about uh, giving lectures and writing papers. It's also about traveling, chatting with each other, meeting each other, and visiting new places, and learning a lot of other things from other people. And that this is the best part, and I think that this is what it makes us to stay in the field and continue and be so excited about it.
Yeah, I think probably like research won't be the main focus on all of our, work lives. I think this is not suitable, and it won't be paid, from anywhere.
Yeah.
So we always have to have like a second, income maybe, or maybe also a third, which is not textile research. But maybe the long goal is like to establish this in all of the
There
European
is
countries.
also the option to simply stay in research, and if you live in a country which is not ready yet to integrate specialists like me, for example, in an institute, or just to hunt a lot of scholarships and to go for an ERC and to go for a Marie Curie. And I often receive this question, why don't you go for a Marie Curie? Guys, if I'm going for a Marie Curie, it's wonderful, but I will need to quit my position in Romania, which is a very nice place. I have a group where I have a team. I'm working with nice projects, and I have already a security there. And I love what I'm doing. I don't have, for example, the guarantee that if I'm coming back after Marie Curie or something like that, I will find a new job. So that's why, even if people say, oh, okay, but this is not okay because you should go for bigger scholarships and stuff like that. But I can do my research, okay, very well like that too, because I have this security and I have a very nice environment, and I can decide that part of my time will be shared for this aim, you know, to publish some tools, I don't know from which site, and this is nice for me, and I can do it pretty well in the same way in which I did my PhD thesis in Romania and not abroad. Because many people said, okay, but you are doing something from Greece, or why don't you go abroad to do? Because I want to bring things in Romania, and I want to just, this is the way in which we can produce a change locally, you know. At least this is my point of view up to this moment in what I saw and what I was able to experience.
I mean, obviously it depends on each case, our personal circumstances, but I want to be a bit more optimistic, because I think Meghan already mentioned, like, she was saying that art and crafts is now perceived in a different way. It's way more positive now. But even like I have a 4-year contract paid by the National Ministry of Education of my country on a topic that maybe 10, 20 years ago wouldn't have had the positive feedback that I'm getting now. So the fact that I started with 21 years old studying textiles, I think already says a lot about the different and the changes that thanks to scholars before us did, because now it's a bit more accessible, although many of the problematic issues are still there, but it's like a work in progress, I think. But the fact that we're getting like funding to do our research, it's already like a good situation to be.
Yeah. Well, I said a lot about doing on my own, because in Romania, up to this moment, I wasn't able to find funding, you know, never. I mean, I only did with my PhD scholarship, which was very little. It was like 300 euro per month. And yeah, and I just bought books, and you see that big library? I have books. I have books on textiles. I have all the ancient textile series for my own money from that, you know, scholarship. Yeah, I just did it because in Romania we don't have libraries. Twice a year I used to go to Athens in order to be able to keep in touch with the literature. I mean, in Romania you don't have libraries, you don't have free access to JSTOR. You cannot live and be a good specialist just, you know, finding on Libgen or I don't know, Sci-Hub to go and and take books from there. It doesn't work like that. You need to do it in the right way. And I used to go every year, twice a year to Athens, and to just I stayed in the library and read all the new papers and books that came on textiles, and then I just started to invest something from myself. And I think that it's fine. I mean, maybe in the future, if I will start to make something more like bigger projects in Romania to integrate, for example, now I'm working on a site that we will have some monographs about pottery, about glass, and there will also be a monograph on textiles made by me. Yeah, this type of projects, maybe in the future, maybe they will be funded and we can integrate in this way. Yeah, but it's a thing that only the time will tell if this will happen or not. Yeah. Okay, so it was a very interesting discussion. It was very nice that we were able to share our opinions on that. And I mean, for me, it was very useful to see also your perspectives, because you are coming from totally different countries with other traditions. And yeah, I hope that if in 10 years we will have a new podcast on these things, will be, yeah, at least we will speak with the same enthusiasm about textiles.
And hopefully we get to like collaborate in between each other. That would be also nice, because it will mean that this works.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been nice. It's nice. I'm leaving hopeful, I guess. And it's also nice to talk to other textile people, even if it's just on Zoom, because I don't have that here very often. So even just that aspect has been very nice.
Yeah, you don't feel so lonely sitting in your own office. So we're always very thankful to connect to all of you. It was such a nice chat. So see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, see you.